Masechta Shvuos, Daf Lamed Zayin Amar Aleph. We're starting from Lamed Vav Amud Beis, where it says Gemara 2 lines from the bottom. We learned now a Mishnah that on Zadain, on Amazed of Shvuos Apikadon, where he was amazed by denying that he knows testimony by Apikadon, he's Chayva Asham Gzelis. Sagt Gemara Ravach Bar Huna, Rav Shmuel Breder, Abba Bar Babachana, Rav Yitzchak Breder, Rav Yehuda. All these three Amarayim Tanu Shvuos Beirabba. They were learning Masechta Shvuos in the yeshiva of Rabba. Pogbahu Rav Kahana met them, Omar Nahu, and he said to them, Hazy B'Shvuos Apikadon. If a person was amazed in denying about receiving the Pikadon, Behisaboy and Aiden warned him before the Shvuot not to swear falsely. They warned him not to swear falsely. Mao, what's the din? Is he going to be Chai Ba'Hashem or Malchus or both? Since this whole concept by Shvuos HaPikadon that there's a chiddush, the B'chol HaTorah Lo Yashchal Mezid B'Sei Carbon. Throughout the whole Torah, we don't find Avera B'Mezid that brings a carbon. And Rashi brings down, even though we do bring, there is by Nazir and by Habal Shit Charufa and so forth, but there are very few. So it's still a novelty. It's still a chiddush. Nevertheless, it says V'hach B'Is B'Karbon. Here by Shvuos HaPikadon we say on Amazed he does bring a carbon, even though normally on Amazed you don't bring a carbon. Therefore, I'll say Lo Yishna Asabei, Lo Yishna Lo Yasabei. It makes no difference if he was warned or not. In any case, he's not going to get malchus. Rather, he brings a carbon and he's forgiven. And this that it says in the Torah, Shagam Mezid B'Shvuos HaPikadon, he brings a carbon. That's a chiddush of the Torah. That's the einish that they established for this avera, and no other punishment. Oy demo, perhaps Hani Mili. When was this chiddush said? As long as there was no warning. But if there was a warning, Milkelaki, I'll say he does get malchus and carbon leimasi, and he does bring a carbon. Oy demo, perhaps that we give both. That he brings a carbon in addition to malchus. Are you going to say on one hand, people you don't get two punishments? On one aved you don't get two punishments. That's only if it's referring to two punishments of bezdin. But here we're talking about a carbon, which is lashamayim, and then there's the punishment of bezdin. That we do. Amalei Tanina, we learned now. There's in the Brais. Again, so it's only by Yenshe Bezdin we don't give two punishments, like Malchus and Mamein. But Einus that's Min Hashemaim, like a carbon we do. Okay, Abilei, the Chacham answered to Rav Kahana Tanina. We learned this thing in Abraisa. Chamur Ayimena Shvuos Pikadon. That Shvuos Pikadon is more Chama, more severe than Shvuos Haida. Shechai Yovim Alz Deina Malchus. That if he did it amazing, he's going to be Chai Malchus. But if he remembers B'Shas HaShvuah that the Pikadon was in his hand, and it's forbidden to swear, but he only didn't know that he's going to be Chayva Carbon, like we explained in the Mishnah, and he's considered as a Shayik. So Asham Kesef Shkalim, then he has to bring a Asham with the worth of 2 silver Shkalim. Medikam alei alzdein malchus from this that it says b'mezid by Shvuos HaPikadon is chai malchus miklal the asabei. So we can imply from here, infer from here that they warned him because the only way you can get malchus is only through a warning. Bikam, we said malchus in kamalei. We said on mezid that it only mentioned malchus, which means only malchus and not carbon. So we have an answer. It says the Gemara, Umay Chumra, and what was the Chumra if so? If he's only getting Malchus by a Mezid, so what's the Chumra of a Shvuos HaPikadon more than Shvuos HaEidus, where there he brings a carbon? What's the difference? And the Gemara, the Nichalei Le'in is the Maisi carbon Le'ilke. By Shvuos HaEidus, that he brings a carbon, he'd rather bring a carbon and not get Malchus like by Shvuos HaPikadon. That's the Chumra. So the Gemara says, so the Gemara is being machri, meaning answer our shaila from the Baraisa that says that by Zod and Shvuos HaPikadon Yechai Malchus and not a carbon. So the Gemara is going to slug that up. to those Hacham that brought the raya from this above mentioned B'Rais, Man Tana. Who's the Tana that says Zedayin Shvus Apikadon Leinitin Kapora? Who says that amazed by Shvus Apikadon you don't have a carbon? A carbon is no good. Rabbi Shimon. It's Rabbi Shimon who learned it out from Meila that only a shegeg brings a carbon, just like by Meila only a shegeg, and not amazed. So too by Shvus Apikadon. So that's a Yochi. You can't bring a raya. We're talking about the Rabbanan according to the Chachamim. We're going to Rabbi Shimon and say that by Shvus Apikadon there is a carbon even by Mezid. So and Al Kaponim, well, let's say they didn't warn him. So the carbon Nami Maisi, you see, even a Mezid that that was one brings a carbon Benaisiv to the Malkis. Because according this the Yimara slugs that up. Because Rav Kahana said to Rachamim that you brought a Raisa from the above mentioned Raisa, Bamina Adai. Leave that Raisa that you brought. It's no Raya to our Inyan. Because I had learned this Raisa according to the way I received it from my Rebbe. This is how I learned it. You have to bring a karmasham for 2 shkolim. And not like we had in the Girsa, like you're learning in that you chayiv al zdaina makis. It doesn't mention anything about makis. So the Braisa was learned like the Chacham, not like Reb Shimon, who was a Das Yachid. And nevertheless, you can't be patient the Shaila because he doesn't mention the Chiv of Malkus at all. So you can't prove that it's talking about that there was Asra. In fact, the Shaila, Rav Kahana continues. So my Chumel, what is the Chumel of Shvus Apikadin, of Shvus Ha'idus? If we're only talking about carbon, and if we're only talking about what's the Chumel in carbon? So he says the Ilu Hasam by Shvus Ha'idus, Chatas Badanka, you can bring a carbon Chatas, which is very... It's just a sixth of a dinner. 1 mug kesef alone is enough to buy a carbon for shvus haydis. But when it comes to shvus apikadon, asher bekesef shkolim, it has to be worth l'chalapach is 2 shkolim of kesef. So according to this nusach, we can learn out that on a zodin by shvus apikadon you bring just a hasham. In fact, you might have a no. Let us learn it from this brayse that on zodin shvus apikadon you bring a asham and you don't get malchus. And so we can answer the suffix of Rav Kahana. And we want to know, over there perhaps is talking about without Asa. In such a case, he brings a carbon and he doesn't get malchus. We don't have a raya if he was warned that he won't get malchus. Lishdachrina. Another lashon tashma. Come in here, I'll bring you a raya from our Mishnah that shvus apikadon ein chayim al shigagasa. It says in the Mishnah we learned that you're not chayiv on a shogeg if he forgot b'shas the shvur that the mamain of his friend is in his hand. He thought be'emes he doesn't have it, and when he swore, he thought he's swearing truthfully. So there you're not chayiv at all. Mahin chayim mazdain. But what are you going to be chayiv on a mezid? Asher mekesher shkolim. Asher akamash with kesher 2 shkolim worth. My labed is it they're not talking about that they wanted? So too in our Mishnah is talking about in a case. So isn't the Mishnah talking about in a case where they warned him not to swear falsely, and he was over and he swore nevertheless? So since B'Pashas our Mishnah is talking about even a case where he was warned, and nevertheless, what does it say? There's only a chiyuv carbon. So we have a raya says you want to know hachanami de lo yasabei. It's also talking about that they didn't warn him, so you have no proof. Maybe b'asabei he would get malchus. Toshma, come in here, I'll bring you a raya from the Braisa. It says loy. What does it mean loy? You cannot learn elsewhere. So because from Nazir, who was matam himself im amata ben Nazir tamei. They buy Nazir who was matam himself. That b'mezid shekain loika he gets malchus for being matam himself. Toima by shvus apikadon is you can't compare because by shvus apikadon if he did a b'mezid shein loika he doesn't get malchus for swearing falsely. Me the kama like from this that you said by Nazir Tame he does get malchus. Obviously you're talking about that he was warned. Vika Amar, and you said B'shvus Apikadon is not similar. Sheina, why is it not similar? Because Sheina like a Aval carbon mice, but he does bring a carbon, so you have a raya even if that's so, he only brings a carbon. Says Gemara, no, my Eina Loika. What did he mean that he doesn't get Malchus by Shavous Hapikodain? The Eina Nifta be Malchus. That he's not part with Malchus alone. Only in addition to, he has to bring a carbon, or in addition to the carbon, he gets Malchus. So you have no proof. So the Gemara says that's how you learn your pshat. So meklal the nazar tameh. So from this you can imply a nazar who is metam himself nifta be Malchus. That a Malchus in itself is enough, and that's why it's not similar to Shavous HaPekadon, because they both. What are you talking about? A carbon sibbe. By a nazir to tameh, it says that he brings a carbon when he becomes tired from his tumah. It says Hasam the Maisi carbon the teichel alei nazir's betara. The whole purpose of the carbon is so the new naziris should be chal betara. Not that the carbon is coming to be mechaper on this that he was tummy. The Chachamim asked the Shaila, through Rav Kahana. I mean, it was asked the Shaila that was mentioned through Rav Kahana. They said this Shaila in front of the Rebbe, Rabba. Amalahus, the Rabba answered to Rav Kahana, Miklal, the Chilo Yasubay. From you can imply, it's mashma, that if they didn't want the Nitva, and there was Eidim that the big garden was given over, Mechayev, he's going to be Chayev for Hashem Gzelis. Why should he be Chayev Hashem al Hashvua in such a Eidim? If there are Eidim that you come and be Makhish, you're talking about there's Eidim and say that he did receive the big garden, he's still going to be Chayev. So Kfiris Dvarim Ba'alma, what he's denying is worthless because ultimately he's going to be Chayev through the Eidim. That's called Kfiris Dvarim. And Rabba holds by Kfiris Dvarim there's no carbon, Alma Kasava Rabba. So you see, Rabba holds that it came from somebody who denies money upon with her Adam that know he owes the money and he swears falsely, he's going to be a potter for Mashing Xelis because the Sav Shal Davar, his shvur is not going to help to pat him for money. So if it's not going to affect any money, his shvur is worthless. And it's not a shvur that you should be chayva coming for. I can bring you a raya that if there's Adam that will testify and the shvur is just kriyas dvarim, he's not going to be chayva Hashem. It says he will deny, and the extra word prat is coming to exclude a case where he's made that he owes only one of the brothers money, not both. He admits to one of the shutrim that he owes, and to the other he's denying, and he swears falsely. So this denial that he made, if it's going to be if it's going to be a place where there's a shtar that can prove him wrong, or Aiden that can prove him wrong, he's not going to be chayva carbon. So you have a fetish abraisa that a kaifa balva upon where there's Aiden, and he swears falsely, patim in a carbon. He's going to be patim in a carbon. If you bring your rai from this previous braisa, above mentioned braisa, like to sign, you cannot bring a rai from my words. Because you can say, it's talking about, I did borrow the whole money, it just wasn't in front of Adam. Or he says, Lavisi Vishtar, he says, I did borrow the whole money. He's admitting to the money. He just says it wasn't with a star or it wasn't with Adam. That's called Kfiras Dvarim. But how do we know if he denies in the money and there's Adam, that there he won't bring a carbon? Mimai says, from where could we prove Taka? From this, okay, now he's asking, how do you prove that was the kavanah of the Braisa that it's talking about? He's admitting he borrowed the whole money, it's just he's not admitting it was Bishtar Be'edim. He says, from this that we learned in the beginning of the Braisa, it says, so excluding if he's made that to one of the brothers of one of the shutrim had lent him the money. What does it mean that he's made that he owes one of the brothers? What's the case? Maybe we're going to say that he only was made on half of the chayv, meaning that he says he only owes money to one brother, which is half of the full chayv, and the other half he doesn't hold. There's a kfira in the other chelik of the money, and that's called a kfira b'chiyuv in money. So there's no bigger kfira of money of this kind of money. It's effective. You're talking about money that is owed. So how could you say that he's going to be part from a carbon? Elalav. It's talking about the Amalei that he said that the Achmo, the Shutim. I'm sorry. First, that the Achmo and the Shutim said mitavin on Yozafta. You borrowed us $1,000 from both of us. And the Nitva answered, "Loi, I didn't borrow from both. I only borrowed $1,000 from one of you." So there's no loss of money because he'll pay one brother and then that brother will give half to the other brother. That's called Kviris Dvarim Alma. So if you explain the Reisha that is talking about that he's admitting to the whole money, it's just he's denying that it wasn't two brothers, it was one brother, it was one shutif, either one. So too the Sefer is talking about when he said that I borrowed from you, but I borrowed without Aiden, I borrowed without a star, but he's admitting to the whole loan. So that's the case of Kviris. So you don't have really a raya from there. Simen Chayva Kitas the Balavais Chayva Nazira. These are all the cases that he's bringing rayas against Rabbah. And we're going to start off like this. Tashma with the first one, with Chayv. It says, he's not a chayiv al sheyigasa of a shvus apikad. If at the time of the shvua he thought that he's saying the truth, that he doesn't have it, ma'u chayiv al zdaina. So there he's going to be patu. Ma'u chayiv al zdaina. Even that he knew b'shas shvua that he's swearing falsely. So al zdaina he's going to be chayiv al sham, and b'kesav shkama has to be worth 2 shikli kesav the kabmash my love. This is then the Mishnah talking about Bizdain Adam. In a case where you had Adam that knew that the money of his friend is in his hand, and they warned him not to swear falsely, and he was able on the Asah, and he swore b'mezit. So you see from here, that where there's Adam, you're chayiv a carbon, not like Rabbah, even though there's Adam. Says Yimaralei, Bizdain Atzma. It's talking about that he himself was amazed. There was no Adam that warned him. And he himself was made of Achazman that he swore falsely b'mezid. But it's not talking about there was Adam, and that's where he's Chayva carbon. But if there was Adam that warned him and there was Adam around him, he might have been part of the carbon, like Rabbah says. It's Kviris Dvarim. Tashma says, you might have been a different right, it's not like Rabbah. There were 2 groups of Adam that knew Adam is, and they swore that, and they swore, or he made them swear that they should testify for him, and when he kafir his shayna, the first group denied that they don't know any Eidos, and then the second group also denied they don't know Eidos for him. Shtein chayav they're both going to be chayav carbon because of shus Eidos. Because each pair of Eidos were able to testify, and they denied, so they caused them a loss of money. So they all, each pair of Eidos are chayav carbon. In fact, the Gemara. This is what we have before. I understand the second pair of Eidim should be Chayva carbon because ultimately they're the last ones that are directly causing the loss of money. The Kafala Katar and Shena, because the first group already denied. But the first group, why should there be Chayva? The second group was still existing while the first one was around. So you see that the kfira of what is the Gemara asking? That the kfira of the first cut is not a kfira that makes them lose money. It's just kfira. He considers it a kfira's dvarim. That's why he should be potter. But Mamish, what did the Gemara answer over there? Why should Taka the first group be chayav? Says the Gemara. My skin over here is talking about going. At the time when the first group denied the testimony, they were the only group that could testify, because the second group were craving mitzad the wives. They were sisters of the 2 Adam that were testifying. And the chiddush was Mishayseya and Geisesais, that they were so sick that normally a person doesn't come out of that sickness. So the shaila was, I would have thought to say, Reiv Geisin Lamisa, Mos Geisim Alamisa. So it's as if the sisters died. So therefore, I would have said that they could say Edus. I mean, that they should be part of because there's another pair of Edus. Kamash Malon comes in and teaches us, Hashtami is Chayininu. Now we still consider them as alive. And if they're considered as alive, so the first pair of Edus are the only Edus. But Mamish, what do we see from this Gemara? That if there was a second pair of Edus, the first Edus would have been part because it's Kvidas Dvarim. So the Gemara, Tashma, come and hear. Tashma, come and hear. Balabai is that was mafkid Eitzloi Chavtzoi Amanas that he should watch Keshavachin of Shatan. Tana's gonna keep bipikad that he Tana's gonna that it was stolen, and therefore he was part of Milashalom as Dama. I'm sorry. So this last raya is not going to be a raya because we're talking about that the first thing, the reason why they are going to be chayiv because they were considered the last agent to testify, and they were directly a cause for the loss of the money. Tashma, come in here, being arrived in the Brais, Shalek Rabba, Malabai is that it was mafkid a chayv, it's amanas that the person should watch of him like a shemechin of shaitan, Tana's gonna be become. And the shema, Tana, that it was stolen from him, therefore he's part from paying. And he had sworn. And then afterwards he was made over, Adam and Adam came and testified that the pekadon he still has. If he was made that he had the pekadon before the Adam came, Mishalem, Kerem, Chemish, he pays the principal and have an additional fifth and Asham. But if the Adam came and then he was made, Mishalem Tashlo Kefil, he has to pay double and he brings a Kabam Asham. So here you see Beferish that he was Kefil B'Mamay and he would have had to pay anyway because the Adam, there were Adam, and nevertheless he said he's Chayva Carbon. Even though there were Adam there when he denied that he doesn't have the money, we said if he was made up, he's going to have to bring a carbon. The Adam had to come testify anyway, and he would have been chayiv anyway. So why would he have to bring a carbon? If you want to hachanami here also, you could say to Ravina that at the time when he swore there were no Adam, and that's why he was chayiv a carbon. He can't prove anything, but maybe really he would be potter. But really, b'shas hashvua, if there were Adam kshenim, maybe he wouldn't be chayv a carbon. Here we're talking about at the time when he was made, there weren't real Adam. They were relatives. Those Adam, mitzad the wives were sisters. But if there weren't, and that's why when he was made, that's why he has to bring a carbon because we can't consider as if there were Adam that they were going to be mechayvim anyway because the Adam were craving. Ravina says, I'll bring you a fourth raya against Rabbi. Tashma, come in here. It says, that the Shavous HaPikadon is more severe than Shavous HaEdus. Chayam as the Marcus, by Shavous HaPikadon, the Bezi Chayim Marcus, while Shekakasa, Asham, Bekesha Shkolman. And a Shegeg is going to be Chayiv, a Kabmasham worth of 2 Shkolman. The Kama Loike from this that he said by Shavous HaPikadon Halsdena, you get Malkes, Mikal, the Kedem. Obviously, you're talking about Adam, because they had to warn him. Because a person doesn't get Malkes without Adam testifying that he was Eved Aveda. Because, nevertheless, when the Tana continues, he said on the Shegeg that he's going to be Chayiv, even though there's Adam, leave that Brais alone. The Rav Kahana had taught the Talmidei of Rabba, he says, I learned this Brais like I accept it from my rabbis. This is how I learned. So what it's amazing, he brings a cup of Asham. And it doesn't mention anything about Malchus. You have no proof to say that it's talking about that there was Adam. The whole proof was because you mentioned Malchus. It doesn't mention Malchus. according to the way Rab Mordechai learned it. Tashma, so he says, come in here, I'll bring you a different raya against Rabbah. Loi, we said we cannot compare Shavous HaPikadon to Nazir b'Meizid. Imamart b'Nazir Tameh, Baya Nazir Tameh, Shekein Leike. He gets Malchus if he was Metam himself b'Meizid. Toima b'Shavous HaPikadon, Sheina Leike, by Shavous HaPikadon, if he swears intentionally that he does no Eidus, Lishaker, he doesn't get Malchus. Hey, Chidami, how's the case talking about? Either like Eidim. If it's talking about there were no Eidim by the Nazir, and they know that he was Nitva b'Meizid, Amai Leika, why would he get Malchus? A person doesn't get Malchus without Eidim and Asa. Alapshita dik Eidim. Only it's self-understood it's talking about that there was Eidim. Vikatani, and nevertheless we said Taima b'Shavous HaPikadon, Shavous HaPikadon is not as severe as Nazir in the same case. Sheina Leika, he won't get Malchus. And we're talking about this Eidim, obviously. Milko, the Leilaki, we said he doesn't get Malchus, have a cup of Maisi. So, but a cup he does bring. So you see, by Shavous HaPikadon, even with his Eidim, he Taka doesn't get Malchus, but he does bring a cup to Yufta Rabba, to Yufta. So it's a kasha on Rabba. What we see from here, I don't know if he was warned or not, but he was warned. But by Shavous HaPikadon, what do we see over there? That even though there's Eidim, we're talking about there are Eidim that know he has the Pikadon, and his swearing falsely, denying falsely that he doesn't have the Pikadon is just clear as Dvarim. So according to Rabbi, he would not bring up a carbon over here. It's mashma in the Braisa. He would bring a carbon. So it's a kasha on Rabbi. Rabbi Yochanan, somebody who's kaifa. Kaifa b'mamin, where there's Eidim, and he swore l'shaka, so we're bringing another Tana against, not like Rabba, that he's chayiv, he says. Kaifa b'mamin, even though there's the Eidim is going to be chayiv a carbon, but b'shtar, he's going to be part from a carbon. My time, Rabbi Yochanan. What's the reason of Rabbi Yochanan that by shtar will be potter, but by Eidim will be chayiv a carbon? Because he says Eidim avidah demaisei. Eidim, it happens that they die, and therefore his kfira on the mammon will cause a loss, and that's why he brings a carbon. Shtar hamanach, but shtar is always is preserved forever. So even if he lies, we'll have a shtar to prove that he's wrong. Shtar is also possible to get lost. So how could you say? How could you say somebody who's kafir b'mamin, which is a shtar, he should be chayv carbon because it's shy to get lost? And this is the reasoning of Rabbi Yochanan. Mishum da have shtar shibit kakois. A shtar is connected to karka. And we don't bring a carbon when it comes to a shvua denying about kakois, like in the Mishnah later on in base. Itma we had learned must be a karka. That's the one who's must be a Edom to testify that this karka is his, and the Edom denied, but they don't know any Edom of that. And then they were made that they did know pligi, but there's a machlik if the Edom are going to be chayv a carbon for the Shavous Edom shaka. Chad Alma chayv. One says that he's going to be chayv. Chad Alma potter. One says he's going to be potter. So at this time, Rabbi Yochanan, I'll bring you a raya. Rabbi Yochanan is the one that says potter. Rabbi Yochanan, when this time Rabbi Yochanan had said, somebody who denies money upon with the Edom to testify that he's lying and he lied as shvua. He says shvua sheker chayiv is chayiv a karmashon, because there you're talking about mamish money shtar, and there's no shtar potter. But if it's a shtar, he's going to be potter from a carbon. You have by mamish of a shtar. When you're dealing with a shtar, it's a shivit kakais, and one doesn't bring a carbon on kvida shivit kakais. According to him, for sure, if it's a kvida in the karka itself, forget about a shtar. The karka itself, for sure. If they lied about testimony about the karka belonging to somebody, there's not going to be a chiv carbon. The time says Gemara is taka raya. Amalei Rabbi Yimon Rabbi Avavo. Let me Rabbi Yechon Rabbi Lazar. Pluk to Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Banan Kamim Pligi. Let us say that Rabbi Yechon Rabbi Lazar are arguing the machliks over Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Banan. That then it's Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar in the same machliks of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Banan. Then that we don't Mishnah. In a Bryce, somebody robs a son from his friend, meaning he chases him out of the field, and he takes over Balapatishkeit, Ustafanor, and the field was flooded, and it destroyed the whole field. So that he has to replace him with another field or with money of the losses, because he holds that there is such a thing as gzela b'karka, and he's responsible to pay back. Those are the words of Rabbi Lezer. Chachamim say the gaz ha'emalei areish ha'chalav nacha. You can tell the nigzal, here's your field, and he's not chai for anything. Now we said, what are they arguing? The Gemara answers, and now we're going to go through the psukim. And this is how he's dashing the he'll deny in his friend and lie to his friend. That's riba. That anything that a person will deny is, so anything that he'll deny to the nigzal is considered as is included in this ribui. By pikadon or halva, that's a miyud. Now you're limiting what the denial is referring to. Oy mikol asher yishava alav l'sheker mikol asher yishava is chas v'ribu, that everything is included. So ribu meet v'ribu, yeah, hareu ribu akol. You're being marba anything that's, even things that are not mamish similar to those pratim that say in the pasuk is included. My riba kol mili, everything. My miyud, only one thing. Like normally a riba miyud or riba excludes the most distant similarity, which is shtaris. Why? Because the paper is not mamein. The erch of the star has no worth, and it's only there for raya, that he should be able to collect the chayv. Okay, or that the kaka is his. So Rabbi Lazar says anything that's the nigzal, except for studies, if a person steals it, he's gonna have to pay back the gzela, including karka. The only thing that he's going to be put is for a star. Karka wasn't excluded from the pasha gzela, so therefore he has to replace him with pay for the damages or replace him with another sada. Rabbanon darshi klalu prati. Rabbanon learn it as a klalu prati. The chichash b'amisay is a klal. Anything that he denies is included in gzela. B'fikadon v'simziyad or gazel, a pikadon alva or gzela aru prat. It's limiting the din of gzela to specific items. So there's again a klal, including everything. So klal upratu klal yatadon alakena prat. Anything, it has to be anything that's similar to the prat. That's what's included. So we can learn out ma prat nafurish davar matal mamein, just like the prat that's said in the Torah is something that's movable and in itself is mamein. So too, you could be maba anything that's movable and it's mamein. Yatsa kakais shei metalfim. Kakais is not a movable item. Yatsa avadim shehuk shel kakais. Avadim are compared to karka, like it's brought down from the pasuk. V'snachaltem oisim lebneihem achareichem l'resh chazuza. This pasuk, the Torah's mashra, Eved, compares Eved to herself, is the Echuzah, meaning to Karka. Shafapi, Yatsa studies, Shafa Pishay Metalton, even though it's movable items, but it ain't good for mumming. But it's not, the star in itself is not worth any money. So therefore, you see Karka is included, is excluded from the Teres Gisela, and therefore he does not, he can say, Reish Kolach Menecha. Rabbi Yirmiyah now wants to connect the machliks of these Tanaim to the machliks of Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar. Man Mechayev, the one that was Mechayev HaKorban, where somebody's mashbiya Edi Karka to testify that it's his Karka, and he swore false, and the Edom swore falsely about, denied falsely with a shvur. So the Chayiv Achaymesh VaAsham, even by Kfir's Karka, because of Rabbi Elazar, because Karka, it's a loss of money. Karka is an exelis. And therefore you have to bring a carbon. Man the potter, and the one that says he's potter from a carbon, meaning Rabbi Yochanan, Ke'abanan holds that Karka cannot be stolen. So according to them, Karka was excluded from whatever is said in that parsha. Like we mentioned earlier on, this parsha is teaching us about the chiyuv of the Shavous Gzela, and also the din of Anishba, Shavous Hapikadon L'Sheker. And therefore it's a svara, that just like Rabbi Elazar and Chacham were arguing if Karka is Nigzelis, so too they're arguing if Hakayf Bekarka, and then he swears L'Sheker, if he's that is whether he's Chayv HaChemesh VaAsham VaAsham Gzelis, if he's going to be a Chayv HaKarmasham. According to Rabbi Elazar, the Karka was included in Gzelis, so too all the dinim of that pasha are included, including Asham Gzelis. If he swears falsely by Shvus HaBekadon, but then according to the Chachamim, it's excluded from Teres Gzela, and therefore all the other dinim are also excluded, and you don't have to bring a Kamasham. So the Gemara shlogs up. Amalei, Rabbi Avo said to Rabbi Meir, it's no proof that these two machlekes are totally one and the other. Man the Mechayev, the one that's Mechayev, Chaymesh VaAsham, Bikviyas Karka, surely holds Rabbi Elazar, and not like the Chachamim. Like we said, according to the Chachamim, Karka was excluded from Teres Gzela. So for sure he doesn't bring a Ashur. Man the potter, but the one that says he's potter, Amalach, we could say that he holds like Rabbi Elazar also. But the Indian of Chaymesh VaAsham, I feel like Rabbi Elazar made that the Karka is not included. Even though the Torah was Marbe, Karka, B'negei Gzela, and the Chiyuv to return it, nevertheless he excludes maybe from the Chiyuv of Chaymesh VaAsham. Why? Because the Achmana Amar, the Torah says, Oy Mikoil, with a mem. Mikoil Asher Yishav Alav La Sheker, B'negei to Shvua, V'shil Meis V'resh V'chem Shvisa, V'yesa Alav, V'sasham Yavi Alav. So it's mashma Mikoil, V'lo Yihako, it's mashma, L'gabi Chiyuv Chaymesh VaAsham, the Torah is not being marred by everything. Rather excludes some cases that are not like the Prat, aside from studies. It's an additional exclusion aside from studies. Then which one is the next exclusion if the studies? Karka. So just like Kefa Bekarka, and he swears falsely, he's Pater Mechemish, Vasham Gzelis, according to Rabbi Elazar, so too, somebody's Mashbiya, the Karka, to testify, and they say they don't know any testimony, they're going to be Pater from a Kam Meilaviyated by Shvus HaEdis. Amar Papa said, Mishmei the Rav, in the name of Rav Masnis Namedeka, Al Mishnah, you could also be a raya and be medayik that the common shvua is not by kriyas karka. The Ketani, we learned in the Mishnah, in our Mishnah, somebody who says to his friend, Ganafti Shayri, you stole my shayr, and therefore you owe me. But who am I Ganafti? He says, I didn't steal. Mashbiach ani, swear to me that you didn't steal. And he answers, Amen Chayiv. He has to bring Hashem Gzelis, but he look on after his abdi, like Ketani. But he didn't learn the case where he says to his friend that you stole my Evid and you swore and they swore falsely. They don't know any Eidos like Tani. We didn't learn. Smashman Eifen said my timer. Why didn't he bring it? It's Smashman. This Eifen is potter. My timer. Why would he be potter by such a kfira? La mishum Evid is kish lekakois. Evid is compared to kakois. But him having karma clear shibit kakois, and we don't bring a karma denying on Shibit Kakois. Amar Pap Mishmei the Rabba Ema Seifa. The Gemara pushes off this mashmais in the Hemshech of the Mishnah because it says in the Seifa of the Mishnah Zeh Klal Kol HaMishal Mal Pi Atzmai. anyone that's chayiv b'main, chayiv, meaning he's made himself, anybody that pays because of his own idea, chayiv, will be chayiv Hashem Gzelis. If he denied in the chiyuv and he swore falsely, the kol she'enim Hashem al pi atzmai. But anybody who doesn't pay to his being maida, like maida b'knas, he wouldn't be paid. He wouldn't be chayiv to pay. So he's potter from Hashem Gzelis. What is he coming to include with the word Zaklal? Is it or not? He's coming to conclude that somebody who says Ganaf this Abdi, and that you stole my evidence, to teach us even in such a case, he's going to be Chayiv Hashem Gzelis, even though Avodim HaHukshlu Kakois. So you have proof from our Mishnah that even Bekvias Avodim HaKakois, you Chayiv HaKam, not like Rabbi Yochanan. Says from this Mishnah you cannot prove if the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan or Rabbi Lazar who argues on him.